హృదయపూర్వక నమస్కారం. I bow and pay my respects to the God particle within each one of you. And it's an honor to be at Harvard, to be one of the keynote speakers. And I thank the student body who could make it happen. And I wholeheartedly thank you, all of you. Thank all of you. And it's a new experience to me to be in this kind of platforms. It's comfortable and easy for me to address a lack of people, but to come to Harvard and to face thinking minds is not an easy task. So it took me some time to ponder whether I could communicate what I believe in and what I stand for. It took me some time, so finally I had accepted. That's why I'm here. And today the subject would be the global power, India's rising global power. But I can't talk about entire India because my experiences are confined, though I know a lot about India, but my political experiences or my political realm is only within on the state of Andhra Pradesh and the state of Telangana. So I would like to communicate from within Andhra Pradesh and Telangana perspective. But to talk about the global power, first I would like to, what we lack in our country, there is amazing divisiveness in our country. We don't feel as one unit. For me, the reason why I came into politics was I could see the divisiveness, how it is hampering the progress. And all of us, we believe we belong to one sect, one class, or one region, or one religion, but we don't feel the complete Indianness. We don't feel, for example, the North Indian leadership, they don't know much about South India. For example, Gandhiji traveled all over India. He knows nook and corner of India. Today, how many leaders, either from South or from North, actually know about the entire India? Today, I know more about America or more about West, what's happening in the West, than what exactly happening in the eastern part of India. My feeling is the way we had achieved freedom with a lot of blood and toil, a lot of sacrifices, and the kind of passiveness our society shows. So many problems are there. Recently, I've been to one part of Andhra Pradesh, it's called Srikakulam district. One particular area is called Udam. No one knows, not even the government, they have an idea. For the last 20 years, around more than 20,000 people died out of kidney disease. And it is some kind of, I don't know what exactly causes the kidney disease in the people who are living in that area. No one knows. Even that one of the people who came from Harvard and they made some kind of research, but somehow they could not completely zero down this particular problem. And none of the political parties could address the issue. And constantly the people who are suffering, they were very poor. And no one their voice was not able to reach the governments. So somehow they had approached me when I went there, and after seeing their pain, after seeing what they're going through, when I addressed the issue, at least the government machinery had moved and trying to do something now. And this is the plight of our nation, and this is the kind of constant attitude what our political leadership does to our country and to our state. And for me, this is deeply painful. And constantly we feel the pride of our country, and we feel so much always we can show us that say that India is a growth of this percentage and that percentage, but in reality, to whom, to which group this development is actually reaching? And we can promise in every particular situation, they say that they're going to promise, we're going to bring on the movement, we're going to show this, but actually in reality, people don't ask for big things. In 2007, I was working for the political party of an outfit which was established by my brother. And I went there in a district in Telangana state. It was a complete tribal district. And like any other guys, even my party people told me, please you have to address them, let's go to one of the tribal leaders and see like what we as a party what we can do for them. And first time I've seen people struggling because they're saying that we're going to give you the best schools, we're going to give you the best education, we're going to do that. And after all the election rhetoric. So for some time, there was an old lady who was like, blinded right from her childhood. She was around 60-year-old. And first until then, I never knew people without eyeballs actually they can try. It never came to my experience. I'm not a science student to understand. First time that lady was trying, I said, guys, I don't know what we're going to do, but we need just water. They're requesting her to have a basic water, nothing else. We don't want anything. We need drinking water. To get the drinking water, we have to go all the way to a few kilometers away. We struggle. Could you get us water? That deeply pain. But like, I heard about it. I went back to the constituency. And they put it just a few kilometers away. I'm talking about from that place is the next meeting I went, it was of 60 kilometers away. And they put this kind of mineral water in front of me. And I felt so guilty. They're lacking of water. Here I get a mineral water. I felt like a criminal. And I was somehow, I lost interest in the political process. I only told my friends and someone who were following me, I said, can we do something till we get into it? We don't know whether we're going to win or not, but at least can we do something about it? And luckily, a few friends came forward and some who could identify the water bodies underground, they were there. And within no time, they could dig a borehole. In the next 1 week, they had drinking water there. What I'm trying to tell you is, if I, as an individual, if I could do that much, can you imagine the power of machinery? Can you imagine the power of government? What they're capable of doing? Then I said, what made them not to go ahead and do it? Because nobody, not that I'm saying the entire political class is like that, but majority, they don't have great interest. For them, what is the next move? What is the next way to earn, to get benefits? It is like the apple polishing attitude of a political class is really denying the development of the underprivileged. And this is what really pains me. And if you ask me, like, to talk about how the global emergence of, how India can rise as a global power, I don't have that kind of experience. And there are enough experts, there are enough intelligent intellectuals out there who has a better idea about it. What I can say is, I can speak on behalf of common men, because I have been there, I lived there, and I come from a lower middle class background. And finally I became an actor, and I would like to address these issues. And so that I know the pain of each one. And we talk about women empowerment. For me, there are a few key issues which I would like to bring into your notice today. One is about the women empowerment. There is heavy budget for everyone and everything. And women empowerment, in our schools, there is no personal hygiene for growing girl children. And and they have enough money, and somehow it does not reach them. That's the problem there. And today we want, women are the biggest force. We want to empower women, and first of all, you have to give them a healthy lifestyle. Even the so-called social welfare hospitals are there, and they're heavily being neglected. And these are issues which are burning issues. And also the major problem in India is the women's safety. The women's safety is such a big concern. And what Gandhi says, in the middle of the night, a woman could really walk, that would be the right. That's where we have achieved the freedom. But in reality, even in daytime, if someone has to go, that's quite a risky situations are there, even in my own kith and kin, what they go through. So for me, what I wanted to do is, first of all, we should have a great, very powerful law and order situation should be there. Law and order should be really controlled, have a great say in safeguarding women. To get one Nirmaya Act, when I say yesterday, it is passiveness which really pulls back India. To get one Nirmaya Act, because right from my childhood, I have seen, because I grew up with my sisters and aunts, I know that how they used to suffer. They never used to feel safe to go out on the roads. To get one Nirmaya Act, it took government for 60 years plus. That has to happen in Delhi. Unless it happens in Delhi, they don't wake up. Everything cannot happen in Delhi to make them understand. They have to feel the country, they have to feel the pulse of the country, they have to feel the pulse of the people, which is Muslim. And recently I was talking about for example, the state has been divided, like we come from Unified Andhra Pradesh. When the state has been divided, what they did was, right from 69 to 72, both the states want to get separated. This is an example. I don't belong to that generation. I don't know what exactly happened around 40 years back. It was not under my control. But the brunt. But I'm facing the problem today. Somehow, it was quite painful because why? We will say India has to be one. We should feel the oneness here. One way to say in India, the Constitution says we should be together. We should be as one individual entity and force. But in reality, they keep on dividing. As long as the divisive politics and vote bank politics are there, these kind of issues keep arising, and India's progress will be constantly taking a back step. We go one step forward with this kind of divisive and vote bank politics, constantly constantly looking at people as a vote bank. For me, I know a lot of political leaders. They don't look at people as people. People are filled with emotions. People are filled with love, pain. People are filled with love. But what they look at them is, that's my vote bank. This particular caste is my vote bank. The particular region is my vote bank. They don't see them as humans. In politics, we should get a human angle. They are filled with emotion. They are filled with love and affection. We have to address that issue. Unless we address the individual as, we have to recognize as individuals, not as a vote bank. Till we do it, India is going to get affected by this kind of divisive politics, this kind of vote bank politics. And after seeing this, because for me, the reason why I came into politics was, I don't want another generation, the future generations has to suffer like me. I don't want them to suffer. Today I'll live a comfortable life. There's no need for me to come. But I said, for me, I felt like a service. I can't ignore. I'm thinking, man. I said, I feel painful. I feel extremely sad looking at the kind of situation. Somehow, what best I can do, I don't have strength, and I don't belong to any huge political party. I'm not extremely rich. But I said, what best I can do within my means? Then I established the party, and I started highlighting each and every issue. Knowingly, getting into politics is like, it's a battle which cannot be won, and a destination which cannot reach. I know it, and still I came into politics to serve my nation and to serve people. should understand we have to define development. Development is for each individual is different. For me, a lady in Adilabad, her development is only a water every day. That's her development. For someone else, it is another kind of development. Maybe a housewife, it is nothing but to get her TV outright. And for a student, maybe a simple student, he needs a playground to play. This is what development means. Here we say that India is rising, India is achieving great standards, but the standards are not reaching to the majority of our Indians. And that's why you can see, even in Tamil Nadu or other states, you have to understand why these large youthful protests are happening. Today we talk about the dividend. The great people of 19 to 20, demographic dividend. We want to reap the demographic dividend. But actually, in reality, what exactly we are doing for them? People don't do anything for them. They just plan. They keep on saying so many things. They keep on like, we're going to do for this, we're going to for youth. They announce a lot of measures, but actually, in reality, how much it is translating to whom it is reaching are two different things. That's why today, if you look at in Tamil Nadu, you can, how many of you know about it? The lots of people came for Jallikattu, which is a traditional game of Tamils, to tame a bull. But the undercurrent reality which was there a few months before, they were saying that restlessness in our state, because the political situation is so volatile and no one is focusing on the ground, and very soon they went out in a different form, we don't know in which form. And we could see that Jallikattu we should not see as a mere anger on taming the bull, like, when the Supreme Court said against taming the bull. It's not just about that, it's their frustration. Mere, we want to reap the demographic dividend, unless we identify them, we recognize them, and unless we channelize their energy, till now, India is going to see a rise of this kind of protest, including Andhra Pradesh, including Telangana, and including even recently I have seen in Gujarat. This is what is going to happen. This has to be addressed. And we talk about, and one more thing, India has to focus on education. And we look at most of the India is rural India and urban India. In urban there are a lot of sectors. And if you look at each school, the urban schools, there is no one out there. There are no right playgrounds. There are no right facilities. Including when I was growing up, I never had a playground in my own school. I thought it was confined to my times, or it was confined then. But actually, even if you look at it right now, all the urban areas doesn't have a playground. And here we want to reap the advantage of demographic dividend, and yet we can't even provide a basic playground to our own children. And not even the state government or central government actually doesn't look at it. In which way, if we keep on ignoring all this, in which way we're going to reap the demographic dividend, in which way we can raise to reach that, how can we become a global power if we don't correct ourselves? My purpose is not to undermine, but unless we highlight our issues, unless we highlight our flaws, what exactly are happening, unless we correct them, it's going to be a difficult challenge. What's happening in our country is, as progress, we take one step forward and we create a situation, we go back 2 steps. That's what is happening in our country. For example, demonetization. We are going at such a beautiful pace when the demonetization is announced. What happened was, in my own 100 people died within our country. And all these people who died were nothing to do with the law. They were not corrupt. They were simple, middle class, hard-working people. And they are the ones who died. And including in my own state, a man who I later got to know their family, the old man went there, who can go to get some money from the banks, just staying in a queue for 2 days to get his money drawn, to draw his money, to withdraw his money. Waited for so many hours, and he died of a heart attack. And these are the things which are actually hampering the growth of our nation. Because without doing the proper exercise, if you try to enforce this kind of laws, this kind of situation, pass this kind of law, the damage is going to be much more. And these are the things which all of us have to address. black market. Who has the black market? It is not a normal, an average Indian citizen has black market. In which way they will get the money? It is from normally irrigation projects. The real big irrigation projects are lakhs of crores, thousands of crores, a very small project. But the money, the major money will be taken away from the project. It goes into the certain groups, certain people who are more closer to the political class, who are nearer to closer to governments. The money goes to them. And they are the ones who are stealing the money. And imagine recently when there's a voluntary disclosure scheme in the central government of India announced. And from my own state, the guy says, I have 10,000 crores to announce. You ask them, I said, from where the guy gets money from? It is a collection of, it is like he's the center point. He's just a face for a lot of political people who siphoned off a lot of national wealth and kept with him, and they wanted to project him as their man. But actually, the money belongs to a lot of politicians who had siphoned off money from the irrigation projects. And there is no check on that. And we can't enforce laws on them. The mass demonetization by doing it, who got affected? The normal man, but the real culprits already, they're free, they have nothing to do with them, they're happy on the roads. And nobody is going to do anything to them. And this is the plight of our country. And with all this, in which way, unless we correct all this, it is very difficult for us to go ahead and to become global power. Unless we correct this, unless we correct the problems within our country, unless we punish the people who are the perpetrators and who are the ones who cycles of this national wealth, and it's going to be very difficult to reach the target of being a global power. And for me, the biggest thing in our country is the law is applied weakly to the strong and strongly to the weak. And if so many incidents are there, a person shoots, he can get away. Imagine a simple guy, a normal guy, who comes. Even in the one way, without a helmet, he'll be punished so hard, but real people who has influence, who has the political affiliation, they shoot people and they get away in nominal punishments. In most of the cases, don't even go to the courts. So when they're confined to hospitals, that's it, they don't go beyond that. And this is what happens in our country. And people who cheat, guys, and they're completely hand shoulder to shoulder with our big leaders. And in which way we can enforce? In which way we can control people? In which way we can make people listen? Because the top, who are the top of the pyramid, they themselves are doing this case. In which way people will listen to them? And also the way people loot the national treasure, the way the people loot the wealth of the nation, including recently said a few years back, if you look at in Ballari, there are a lot of mines who are supposed to pay a lot of taxes and extract the iron ore. What they did was they take permission for a small coal, a small mining area, and they're excavating the entire area without even paying taxes. The taxes that pay, which is supposed to go to banks, which is supposed to go to government, and it is going to the pockets, and the development is here, taking tax there. And those are the guys who are taking the shelter of prohibition. And unless we correct all this, India is going to get affected. It is going to be cooling down. It's going to be cooling down for a country which wants to emerge as a superpower. Unless we correct ourselves, these are the issues which have to be handled. And as I said, law and order is the issue. The biggest challenge in India is to promote tourism. And there's a great possibility with our diversified cultures and vast kind of geographic advantage we have a less tourist percentage. The reason being, one is as a culture, we don't welcome, though we can really welcome people to make them as stakeholders. The major problem is the safety. Unless we seek to give great security, a great safety for the tourists, as well, unless we strengthen the civil society, we can't be controlled. Only police cannot do that. Unless the civil society gets strengthened, unless we make everyone as a stakeholder to give the kind of protection to the tourists in different aspects, and if we make them as stakeholders, that will be a great advantage. And for me, if we want India to be really at the top of the tourism, we have to really enforce very stringent laws to safeguard women. And women's safety is a priority even for the tourists. Unless we feel that, unless we create an image out of India, Indian tourism will be affected. And Indian government and people, and as a state government, really should focus on the women's safety and also the safety of tourists who come to India. And that is going to give a great boost to our tourism.
Love you, Pawan Kalyan.
The democratic comrade.
See, for me, the youth leadership, today we want to talk about the demographic dividend. For me, what I'm doing is, every party looks at youth as political vote bank. In reality, in India, youth means politicians and their families and their grandchildren and their grandchildren. There is no So for me, my biggest challenge, which I'm struggling, which I'm inspiring, which I'm making an attempt, is how to build up that youth leadership. And if you have to understand, there is a great capacity in Indian youth. We can't just see them as individuals or workforce. They are the creative force of our country. They are the driving force of our country. And that's what the force has to be done. Unless we inspire them, unless we become the leading examples, unless we become the embodiment of what we believe in, they're not going to come forward. And for me, every party should look at youth as someone, as a creative force, it's not just as a vote bank. That's what I believe in, and that's what I'm starting up, that's what I'm trying to do in 2019 for Jerusalem. And in spite of all these adverse conditions what we have, for me, always I believe in the saying that adversity reveals the character. With all these challenges, I still believe if we become as one, we can be the global power, and whatever our intentions are, wherever we want to reach, we can be really the guiding force for this world. And the one major thing which I would like to say, and I would like to close it is, for Telangana and Andhra, because I keep on referring to this issue on purpose, one of the senior political leaders said, though both the states were together as one unit, but as a culture they haven't merged. Entire India, though they say as one, still they don't have the cultural integrity, which is very essential. For me, I keep on addressing these issues in time to time. A guy in Bihar, a guy in UP, don't know much about southern part of India. They don't know much about Tamil Nadu, the leaders I'm talking about. And also at the same time, the people from southern states, they don't have a great idea about what's happening there. This is the way, unless we integrate our cultures. We have a maximum power to understand Germany. We have a responses to understand France. We don't have any kind of cultural centers within our India to understand each other, which is the essential. The reason is that the recrudescence of identity politics is on the rise. This is going to impact the integrity of the nation. Unless our leaders and our political parties come together as one unit, unless they don't address this cultural differences in identity, and we slowly create a lot of problems. And that's the reason I want to bring it to notice as that culturally, somehow all of us should make an effort to understand each other, which is really needed to feel as one India and to make it to take it to at a global level. Really the kind of global power we are looking at, to become the global power, unless we feel as one, unless we culturally get as one unit, it would be very difficult to take it forward. And before finishing this, India is a massive society. Whatever happens, in fact, recently I was talking about a woman saying, they keep saying in Bangalore, a woman was being molested in the middle of the road, and the onlookers were just looking at it as if they're not a part of it. None has the guts, none has the courage, and none has any strength. One single guy was doing it. They could have thrashed it, but no one has the strength. Can you understand what is crippling our Indian society is that passions. How the passions has to be addressed unless our leaders, the problem is in assemblies, when the elected representatives watch pornography, when sessions were going on. So what kind of message people get? And this is what that's how it is at a street level. For me, this is what we have to address this issue. Unless, for me, democracy is something all of us, it's very easy to comment. It's very easy to say this is wrong, this is not possible. Like many people can comment, but how many people actually can come onto the doors and participate in the building of our democracy? How many people actually come physically? It's very easy. It's nice to be on the internet and on the Facebook to express your opinion. But in reality, if you come onto the roads, people are getting threatened, people are getting intimidated, and which had happened, which keeps happening. They keep threatening, they keep saying that you feel like you keep on expressing anything, and one day we're going to bump you. I said, I'm fine. But I'm not going to stop whatever. There is a mistakes of their society. If they are crossing the society, if you want to bump me out, if you want to get me in front, I'm ready for it. I'm prepared.
No!
No, because this is the law for my nation, because I don't want the future generation to suffer unless someone, this is my capacity, what best I can do, I will do. So before finishing this, I'd like to say that to tell you the greatness of our country, and to feel what because there's one of my favorite poets is there in Telugu. His name is Seshendra, Dave Seshendra. He passed away in 2006. His books were shortlisted for a Nobel Prize. And I would like to say that first in Telugu. Parvatam eppudiki ungi salam cheyu. సముద్రం కూడా కాలం దగ్గర కూర్చొని నేనంతా పిడికి మట్టే కావచ్చు కానీ కాలం దేశం జెండా కొనుక్కోవాలి. Though it is not translated in, I don't know that the translation is in English or not. It is translated into Hindi and other languages. But I try to translate, though I'm not a poet and I'm not good in English. I try it in my own way to the morning. The mighty Himalayas will never bend down and salute. A roaring typhoon's voice will never be subservient. The deep ocean never barks at anyone. Maybe I'm a handful of dust, but if I raise my voice, you will see the pride and strength in me of my national flag.
Lal Salam, comrade! Jai!
One more thing, Before Purushottam, let me say this. India stands for Dharma. India stands for truth. We are the land of Himalayas and historical Vindhyas. We love everyone, but we fear none. We respect everyone, but we surrender to none. Thank you. Bharat Mata Ki.
You like in Telugu?
Right, so we have about 15 minutes for Q&A. We are going to give you all questions. We just have to answer the mic. So you start that.
Oh, we're going to hear Mike.